So a few weeks back, I was not feeling well, and because I get a sinus infection every year, that's what I thought I had. I took medicine, I took antibiotics, which usually works right away, nothing. And I just kept getting worse and worse. I didn't want to eat. I lost my appetite. I was nauseous. The chills were horrible. The fatigue was the worst. All I wanted to do was lay on the bed and not get up. All along, we've been getting tested. I want you to know, and every time,
all of us,
it was negative, 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 negative.
When she felt crappy, we were like, let's just go get tested.
Exactly.
We all got tested. I was negative, you were negative. Even though you think you're taking every protocol, that doesn't mean you won't be affected.
Exactly.
Our case and in our story, we were tested, and 4 days later, we had to take my mom to the emergency room, where she then tested positive.
There are two types of tests that we as a family have been accustomed to, which is the rapid test, it's an antigen test, and the PCR test, which is a test that you take and then the test goes to the lab. The rapid test is 15 minutes and then you get your result. But there is still a possibility that you are still positive.
It just hasn't shown up in that test.
Correct.
And you guys can do your own research, which is really what I want to encourage you to do. Is, we can share our experience and tell you, but ultimately you can do your own research and find out what the percentages of these tests, the accuracy of these tests, and why, as a family, we totally rely on Monica and her knowledge.
I work in the biopharmaceutical industry, and I've been working in this industry for 20 some odd years. So thankfully, I have some knowledge that I can share.
Guys, I literally can show you the text messages. I wasn't feeling well, and Iz wasn't really feeling well. Like, we all were not feeling well. So now at this point, we're like, something's up, and we're just texting each other and keeping each other abreast of what's going on. At some point, I texted my sister and I said, Claude, I'm scared. Something's wrong. If anybody knows my mom, she cooks us 3 meals a day.
She'll fight through anything.
She couldn't even pick up her hand to comb her hair.
She was so fatigued.
It was, now I'm like low-key panicking, but trying not to panic Claude. And so I hit her and I said, I think you need to come here to check mom out. Like something is wrong.
And you brought an oxygen.
A pulse oximeter, which is super key. I think that you can't go wrong with having one in your house.
Have one in your house.
And I hope you never have to
And they're not
use
expensive.
it.
They're not expensive. You can order them on Amazon. Again, no contact delivery. If we had to get you a COVID kit, the first thing you definitely would want to have is the oximeter. And please explain.
Pulse oximeter.
The pulse oximeter.
It tells you the percentage of oxygen that is being received right at your fingertip. And that is crucial because explain. So it's crucial because it's basically telling you what your organs are getting, the amount of oxygen. It's going to show you 2 numbers, and the larger one is always your oxygen levels. And then there's a smaller number, it's usually on the bottom, and that is your heart rate.
Something that we learned about COVID-19 is that it causes a rapid heart rate, which
tachycardia.
But to us, that's just a rapid heart rate. My mom did not want to go to the emergency room. Why, Mom?
You just don't feel like even drinking anything. You don't want to drink. You don't want to move.
And I couldn't get her to drink. I couldn't. The most I was doing was trying to give her some yogurt, and she wouldn't eat it.
That will make or break you. If you can just get tea in them or any type of broth, it makes the difference.
So
I
have to say that she kept giving me the water, the tea, and then because I didn't know really
what I had,
I thought this is the sinus infection is really getting to me. It was exhausting. I felt like I couldn't breathe.
First and foremost, speak up. If you're not feeling well, don't try to be a superhero. You've got to speak up and say, yo, I don't feel well. I would rather you go to the emergency room and tell them to send you home. If you have a family member that somebody's not listening to, she wasn't listening to me, I called in backup. I said, Claude, you gotta get here. Something's wrong. I'm not gonna lie, man. When Claude said we have to take mom to the ER, I was panicking. So like while mom and everybody was getting ready downstairs, I was full on having a nervous breakdown. I was like, God, please, like, give us wisdom. And I believe that God listens to your prayers. And in that moment, Claude was already on the phone seeking that wisdom from Monica.
Monica became our family advocate.
I've always considered her like my daughter, so it's nothing new. But
She's your
now,
angel
even
daughter.
now, she's my angel. I told her she has a crown in heaven with a lot of rubies and diamonds.
We weren't really sure how to approach this, but we knew that she was en route to the hospital. We knew, because of my understanding of what available treatments are out there, that there was a potential, given her age, to be able to receive an antibody cocktail treatment. We started to strategize around how best to deliver that message to those physicians, her nurses, but also for her to have that knowledge for herself. She was not going in there with Claude or with Adrian.
We
She was
had
going in there
by herself.
But we also had to figure out who else did we need to make sure could be on our side or on her side, most importantly.
I was wild ignorant. I was useless in this situation, and I'm not being funny. Like, I'd like to think that, you know, I'm on a show that talks about pop culture. You know, we target topics of the news and things like that at some points, and I'd like to think that I'm in the know. The only time I had ever heard when you guys started talking about something called a cocktail was what President Trump at the time had received. When I'm thinking about what is an antibody cocktail, it's exactly what it sounds like. When you have a virus in your body naturally produces what's called antibodies that fight
That virus.
off the virus. So what was she getting? Just flooded with those fighters?
She was getting flooded with a significant amount of fighters.
And on top of that, when we got in the car, Claudette turns to mom and goes, Mom, what's your primary physician's name and how can we get in touch with him? I will never not have a primary physician because
Super important, guys.
I didn't know. That's
That was
all.
key. The primary care physician, or what they call as a PCP, was really our first line of defense. We had to make sure that her primary care physician was on board with the actions that we were planning to take.
When medical physicians are hearing from other medical physicians, it makes a difference.
A huge
It's
difference.
not your Titi Yoli calling to tell them you're on your way.
You calling as a layperson or just, you know, me or
Yeah.
anybody else, you're not going to get through. You're not going to get the best response. So it makes sense to make sure that your primary care physician
Is the one
on board
calling.
and who's calling. We needed to make sure that the primary care physician would be able to provide some of the medical history based on your state at that time that you may have not been able to give because you were so exasperated. At the hospitals, you don't know what the criteria is for this emergency use authorization. You also may not be aware if your primary care physician has heard about the antibody cocktail.
Right.
So having that conversation ahead of time, especially with your primary care physician, was key.
They literally were checking certain things like calling the hospital and being like, who do we know that works in the medical field? So they're like, take her to White Plains. White Plains Hospital had beds available, that it wasn't as packed. So knowing also like where there might be some availability is super important.
Let me tell you, hospital workers, God bless you guys.
Yes.
You guys, they want to help. So they're going to tell you, we're really backed up right now, or come on in.
I have got to give a shout out to White Plains Hospital.
The nurses there.
Guys,
From the receptionists to
All
the
the way,
nurses, the doctors, everyone.
we pulled in, and one of the hardest moments was like watching my mom get put in a wheelchair
And then being taken.
and then being taken away. Like, I really am doing this video because I did not know that a cocktail existed, and I want you guys to know that this is something you can request. I didn't know it existed, I didn't know what it does, and from our experience, we believe that this cocktail saved my mother's life.
100%.
Thank God the news is actually spreading around now and people are becoming more and more aware versus what we were experiencing, which was just a wall. And we thank God for this one because she knew.
It's really important, and I think what we'll do is we'll provide some links to the emergency use criteria. But I think what's really important here is just talk about the timing.
How did we find out that they had it?
That was just cold calling. Now, is that people don't have to do that anymore.
Really?
Because what we can provide to them as well.
Hit that link in the description. Literally, it will provide you with all of the hospitals that are currently carrying this cocktail.
In your state, you're going to be able to say within so many miles from your home, this is where the antibody cocktail treatment is accessible to you.
And guys, just so that you understand, what we were freaking out about is her numbers were going down.
Yeah.
Her oxygen levels were not looking good.
And that's really important to state because if she was at, based on some of the hospital's criteria, below a certain O2 saturation, they would have not given her the emergency use authorization for the cocktail. You know, she would have been admitted to the hospital, and then unfortunately she may not have been eligible.
Because of the timing, you guys, you can't let somebody stay at home until the point where, and I know this sounds terrible, where it's the point of no return.
If we didn't get her to the hospital in that time, then there could have been a worse situation which would have made her ineligible, because then her symptoms would have just started to progress to a more serious or severe.
You have to be your own advocate. You have to push. And you're hoping that your doctor also will co-sign that.
And if he doesn't, you still can be your own advocate.
You need to make sure that you understand why that doctor is prescribing that type of medication for you, or why you think that you should really push them for, in your situation, the antibody cocktail.
Like so many doctors, he really didn't have answers for us. And that is the reality is, you know, he was like, I don't know what to do. So in that case, as wild as it sounds, Monica was like, I do.
You can't take all that credit.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Yes, this is very new. So this is a new experience for everybody, and you can never, if you know something like we know now, we're sharing it.
We
Monica
can't keep this information
took that
to ourselves
and said, hey, listen, this is what it is, and this is what the cocktail does, this is what it is, so on and so forth.
And even when she was met with resistance, and he literally was like,
I don't think
I have other patients.
No, keep it real.
No,
what was
it's exactly the conversation was, I have other patients. I will give you a call back in a couple of hours.
And what did you say to that?
Who are you going to delegate this conversation to? Is it your nurse? Is it your physician's assistant? Is it your secretary? When he heard that question being asked to him, he said, okay, let's have a conversation.
We need to empower ourselves, and we need to know that we are worth the time of the doctor. We are worthy of understanding, of explanations, of
attention from the system.
Regardless of your education, regardless of your socioeconomic background, it doesn't matter. Your life matters.
Yes, yes.
So
fight for it.
Fight for it.
Monica was told no. And she did not take no for an answer. She called again. She said, no, I know that
this is what we want to do.
This is what can save her life.
She's eligible. There's a possibility.
That's it.
That's really
There's a chance.
There's a chance. When you know that there's a chance and you have some knowledge, for me, I just can't help myself but to try to use that knowledge to help. Please.
I wouldn't be sitting here.
Find you a Monica. Let me just say that right now.
Be a Monica.
Be a Monica for somebody else. I think one important thing I want to say, because when I hear Mommy talking about, I didn't want to go to the doctor because I've been there, I know what it's going to be, I think about my mom. And I'm looking at you, Ma. Like, there is something in that generation. My mother-in-law and my mother are almost the same age.
Yeah.
And and there's this, this will pass. I would beg you, please err on the side of extreme caution.
Yeah.
That being said, if you're sent home and you still see things declining, go back.
Persist.
Go back. If they send you home again and you just do not feel you go back. I know that that's hard. I know sometimes we're kind of like, do it. Especially with something that we just don't know enough about right now.
So I won't say just go back, go to another hospital.
Yeah.
Get a second opinion.
Get a second opinion.
That.
We have been hearing that taking Pepcid AC was actually helpful if you had COVID.
It's one of the first things they give you, right?
Yes, they put it in right into the IV.
So if that's helpful information as well, like, turns out, guys, we all had it, except for Monica. Everyone responded different.
Yeah.
I also don't want you to think that if you see one of your homeboys or your homegirls and they say they had COVID and they're fine, that may not be you.
Exactly.
That does not mean that we should take this less serious.
Right.
At this point now, we are sent home to wait for someone to call us as to when she can go in to the hospital again to receive this infusion.
And I'm still sick. I'm still feeling really, I'm not well. And I have to say that I thank God for my daughters. For that, Adrian and Monica. But these two girls here, they had an alarm on their phones and they would checking on me every 2 hours, making sure that I was drinking, that all my numbers were where they're
Somewhat.
and they weren't going up. I just have to thank God for the prayers and for my girls.
And I'm just chopped liver mom.
Yes. We have got to really give all the credit to, and that's God.
That's God.
Amen.
When I tell you, we waited and waited and we pushed, and we finally got the call. We took her to the hospital. We go to drop her off, right? We come back here. I'll never forget, I was in that bathroom over there. And we got on a prayer Zoom. We were on there crying out to God like, Jesus, please, Mom, we are praying for you. We are in here, like, you have people praying for you and calling on God. And I really believe that those prayers are part of it.
The
like,
deal she was making with God,
you have no idea.
The negotiations.
They nursed me back.
Yes, you guys did.
God, the cocktail, and these girls nursed me back.
7 days in, you know,
Started to turn.
things started to turn.
The things that we did that we realized helped us. Hydration. And I remember one of the nurse practitioners at one of the facilities telling me, COVID hates hot and hates fluid. And I remember, so it was like, have lots of hot fluid.
Hot drinks,
drink.
broths, soups.
Moving around is very crucial.
So important.
So the way the lungs were, because COVID was in her lungs, we would do this like Tai Chi thing with her, take deep breaths.
Put your arms up.
Move around.
That
Do
opens
not
your lungs.
Sit like this. This is not
Bad
good.
for your lungs.
It's
bad.
not. This whole thing and staying like that, move around.
Don't sleep on your back.
So that's
Do
the other
not
thing.
sleep on your
It
back.
compresses the lungs.
You have to sleep
Sleep
on your
stomach,
chest.
on your side. If you can, sleep on your right side or on your stomach because that expands the lungs. Chest PT, that's like basically physical therapy for your chest. You do this, you cup your hands and just beat.
Show them how they do it.
So
She
you just
would
do this and you start at the lower. This does not hurt them. This is actually good. It gets up all of the, anything that's there, mucus, anything that you're moving it around and you're trying to get it out. Afterwards, she takes big deep breaths and cough to kind of expel anything that's there, anything out.
You guys can Google chest PT, which stands for chest.
Percussive therapy.
We have all tested.
Oh yeah.
We are now COVID
It's been,
negative. Mom is negative.
And
we
we're
just
very grateful.
pray that, you know, that any of this information could be helpful to you.